myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say.
Welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. As most of you know, we always have a guest podcast on this channel each week, and delighted to say I'm joined by Stacey Allan. How are you, Stacey?
I'm okay, thanks.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Anybody in the Northeast will probably be very familiar with yourself. Through the tragic case of Nikki Allan, a case which I think is, touched the Northeast since that horrendous day. When the news broke that your sister had been found, 7th of October 1992, she was murdered. It's a tragic story. I'm pleased to say that we have at least some closure on that story, which we'll come to. But I'd like to start really just building a little bit of a picture up about, yourself. Where were you born and where did you live, Stacey?
I was born in Sunderland, Sunderland General. I lived in Weargarth as a child in Sunderland. And
did you have, any other siblings, or was it just you and Nikki?
Yeah, there was 4 of us. There was me, Nikki, Zara, and Naomi when Nikki died.
And were you the eldest sister?
Yes,
you were. What's your early memories of life with Nikki?
Very good ones. We were just typical kids, really. We played a lot. There was loads of kids. We played with them all, probably big groups of us. We loved our childhood. Loved it.
Lots of fun and just being kids, playing games, etc. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, was she, what kind of sister was she? Was she mischievous? Was she fun loving? What just try and paint a picture of Nikki for us.
She could be very shy, very mischievous. I knew that because I was at the side of her and she played most of her little tricks on me. But she was a funny little girl. She used to make me laugh all the time. She used to have crowds of kids, she used to joke about and make them all laugh. I absolutely loved her.
Okay, let's take it forward to the 7th of October, and please, if you need time, then feel free to take a bit of a break on this. But 7th of October 1992. She's walking home. Nikki's walking home from a granddad's flat on the same estate, and she disappears. Correct us if I'm wrong, but I think she set off around about 8:30 at night, and that was it. No sign of her. She disappeared, and I think about 100 neighbours came out to help. I mean, what was your first, your first awareness of what had happened? Was it the panic in the house? Take us through that particular night for you.
My mum coming back to her flat and thinking that Nikki was there, and I said to my mum, Nikki hasn't returned yet. But people, the panic, they were trying not to panic me, but I could just pick it up on everybody who was around me. There was people flying about all over the place. I could hear people from Garth's over shouting on Nikki's name, and that's quite far back, from us. The full thing was one big panic.
100 people or so out searching. I mean, the community in those days always used to pull together, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. I would have said if not more people than 100. There was more than 100 people per Garth, I would say, searching at the time, and the Garths were pretty close together. It was a big search.
Definitely. So no sign of her that night. I mean, I can't imagine anybody in your house would have gotten any sleep that night.
No, well, I actually did get sleep, but I can imagine everybody else wouldn't have. But I woke up the next morning and that's when I found out, that they'd found a body. One of the other been listening, to what the adults were saying, came and told me.
When you heard that news, what did you feel?
Like worse than you could ever imagine.
I can imagine it's like just a numb feeling. How old were you at the time, Stacey?
I was 9.
Yeah, you were 9. I mean, obviously this news that our body had been found. Where was it found, Stacey?
It was found just one road away, in the Quayside Exchange building, which was derelict at the time. It was known for glue sniffers, and people just hang about him, really. People getting up to no good.
So the old Quayside Old Exchange, wasn't it, in High Street East in Sunderland? And I would imagine, you knew she was dead. I mean, I would imagine, did your mum keep the actual details of this away from you? I'm sure she would have been told, or did they tell you that?
Nobody told us nothing. My mum wouldn't have let that happen to me. My mum wouldn't have let my mind be put through that.
Yeah, which is only right. So the body's found, obviously has to be identified. I can only imagine what it must have been like in the house. Did you go to the funeral?
I actually did, yes.
I mean, what can you remember of that day?
I actually sang a song in the choir, which is really sad. But at the time, I don't know why I did that. When I look back now, and I look at death and that, it would have scared me. But I think it was just because I was a child.
I mean, again, 9 years of age to suffer such trauma is horrendous. I mean, did you have sleepless nights? Did you have nightmares? Were you constantly thinking about what if, and what were you going through mentally at the time?
It hasn't really changed from today, how I feel about it. Going back to 1992, painful, comes with everything, nightmares. It sent me on a roller coaster of going down the wrong path, in my own life. The actual pain of losing Nikki is just, I can't even put it into words, really.
A year later, 1993, George Heron, who was a young man who lived near your home, he was arrested and then stood trial at Leeds Crown Court for Nikki's murder. What was the feeling in the household when he was arrested?
I felt safe because I thought they'd found Nikki's killer. And I can imagine everybody else to have felt like that as well.
And from your perspective, I guess, that anyone who has to go through this horrendous situation, living with a murder in their family, wants to see justice. And I guess, from a lot of people's perspectives, looking at Heron, there was a few things which pointed to him being the murderer. I think blood splatters were found on his shoes and clothing. I think his sister had come forward and said that he'd returned home on the night of the murder and gone straight to the bathroom and washed for an unusual period of time. Of course, he denied being out on the evening of the murder. 4 witnesses had come forward and said they'd seen him at the Boar's Head pub and the Clarendon pub, which are local, of course, who matched, people said it matched his description. He was seen buying, various things in places, cheese and onion crisps, I think was one of the things that was mentioned in the court case. And, they led them to believe that was what was going to lure Nikki to her ultimate death. But 3 days of questioning in the police station, he actually confessed to the murder, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think as well, he previously denied it, quite a lot of times. The evidence though was circumstantial, but the police did think that the conviction would be secured. but the trial collapsed, didn't it? The case against Heron collapsed.
Yeah. Like, the biggest thing I want to say about all of that is, like, how comes after all of that, the police know the best bit of it, you know, the bit of where all these things were found. They don't just take somebody to trial for nothing. And then all of a sudden, we get buoyed, you know, and the police are apologising, you know, to the man that they found all of this evidence on. And how could that be possible? There's a lot of instances now that when it needs to be looked into now, you know, about the full case. What on of it you were?
Yeah. I mean, the case collapsed because the tape of Heron was inadmissible in court. And the judge went on record and blamed, and I'll quote, heavy-handed police tactics for this outcome. So he was found not guilty of Nikki's murder, and he was given a change of identity and moved out of Sunderland. So, you know, that must have been devastating for the family. And I can hear it in your voice now. It's still very annoying for you.
Yeah. We feel at this point now, we've got one person, but we're frustrated, you know, at the full thing. This battle will never end for us, you know. I mean, it's going to take our full life just to piece it all out, you know, and bring all the injustices forward. We've got a battle on our hands. People think it's the end, you know, when you hear like guilty in court, but then you've got all the people that were involved, you know, around this person.
I mean, obviously there was a civil court case against Heron, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Your mother took that out, and he was charged with battery on a child resulting in a death. I think the court, if I'm right, found this to be in favour and ordered him to pay more than £7,000. But because he was unable to be traced, the money was never actually paid. And as you say, with the trial that we've just had, Northumbria Police, of course, apologised to him, which is clearly something which rattles you a little bit, and your mum, no doubt.
It would rattle anybody.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah. We had another twist and turn, of course, in 2014. Serial killer Stephen Grieveson was arrested on suspicion of Nikki's murder. He was also questioned and told he'd face no further action. I mean, that in itself must have been, you know, heartbreaking again for the family.
Heartbreaking, definitely. Stephen Grieveson was definitely involved in Nikki's murder. He was seen about the Goths all before Nikki was murdered. Stephen Grieveson, George Heron, Boyd, who's been charged for the murder, and a number of other people all hung about together.
And I mean, is that something which the police pursued?
There's been loads of injustice. It's hard to say what's what, you know, at this point, because we've only just got justice. So we're left now to piece it all together.
And the other thing that, you know, really can get to people involved in this kind of situation is when people come forward and you know, claim that they have evidence. But there was a horrendous case in 2016 when a woman came forward, contacted your mother saying she had new information about the murder. The woman, I think, was 12 years old at the time, said she'd been babysitting nearby when Nikki disappeared. But again, you know, you get lots of people coming forward, and sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not.
Yeah, that's true. At this point, I can't really speak, you know, about that.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. That's
that I know about.
Yeah. All right. With regards to you and your mum pushing forward for justice, you know, what keeps people going? Is you know, what drives you on? And you know, I'm sure there must have been up and down moments as well, Stacey.
Oh God, like too much, up down, and my full life's been like that constantly. I'm glad I've got enough power in me to stay positive, because it's been really hard.
in September 2016, your mum launched a petition to carry out the top to bottom review of the case. Do you think that made a big difference in getting to where we eventually got to?
All of my mum, this would have been just pushed under the rug like a lot of other murders, if it wasn't for my mum persevering with a love for her daughter. She loved her daughter, and it's devastated her that much, and it's the love for Nikki that has kept this going and up to now. If it wasn't for my mum, we wouldn't have even got the killer.
I did notice when I was doing my research, before we did this interview, in 2017, your mum met the Police Chief Constable Steve Ashman, along with Detective Chief Inspector Lisa Thika. Now, Lisa obviously saw the case through. They restated the determination to bring Nikki's killer to justice at that time. And in 2017, police said that they successfully recovered a DNA sample from an unknown male. Now, of course, science plays a big part these days. Cold cases, as they're called, can be opened and solved with DNA. There must have been a chink of light and a hope in your heart when first of all when the police said they had a determination to bring Nikki's killer to justice, and when you heard about this DNA sample.
It did, but it wasn't as exciting as you would think, because my mum had solved this case. My mum had solved this. It didn't really do much, to listen to my mum. So it wasn't as good as of a surprise that you would think. The police. I hope we can take this bit out because my nerves have just got the better of me.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
It wasn't such a surprise, because I'd heard my mum seeing the same people over and over again, since I was a kid, and the police never listened. And then it was only obvious that DNA would be more advanced. So we got DNA on this man. My mum's been pointing these people out, for years. So it wasn't such a fantastic, amazing thing that you would think that it was, when they would finally got DNA.
So obviously there's an arrest in the Stockton area of Teesside. A man is arrested on suspicion of Nikki's murder. And the man arrested is then charged with murder, amazingly, 4 years later in 2022. And this man was named as David Thomas Boyd. He appeared at Newcastle Crown Court on the 24th of May 2022, was remanded in custody. And of course, the trial began 20th of April this year, 2023, at Newcastle Crown Court. How did you feel when the man was named, when you got to find out who it was?
I was relieved. I've heard these same names, crop up over the years. So it was a relief, to finally have evidence. Mm-hmm.
From your perspective, you now have, somebody who, is going to face trial. You've been through it already, though, with George Heron, so that must be in the back of your mind. But what was it like in, the start of this year when you were getting ready for the trial? Were you nervous about going to see and look at this man in the eye?
I am not as much as you would think. I've prepared for this moment most of my life, so took the brunt off it a little bit. But after that, after I'd actually stood in court, it was not a good feeling.
DNA again played a huge part, as we know. His DNA had been found on Nikki's clothing. I don't want to go into the case because I would never put you through that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to mention what happened. We know what the end result was. From our perspective, though, I do want to talk about the day that he was found guilty. How did that make you and your mum feel?
you can see by the pictures of two before and after. It absolutely destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look really bad. No, Mum does as well. Don't even look like ourselves.
12th of May, he was found guilty of the murder of Nikki. It took the jury of 10 women and 2 men 2.5 hours of deliberating to convict Boyd. A 30-year wait for justice is, for me personally, 30 years too long. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 29 years before becoming eligible for release on parole. Of course, he will only become eligible to apply for parole in August 2049. I watched you and your mum come out with your friends and supporters of the court, and my heart felt for you. I felt as if, as an observer of and somebody who's followed this case for the 30 years, that I felt justice had been done, but that's not the way you feel, is it, your family?
No. It's just some concrete evidence getting one of them to a whole big thing, that's been covered up.
What would you like to see done? What has to be done next, and what are you and your mum looking to achieve by coming out and speaking about this? What would you like to see done?
To highlight everybody that is involved in Nikki's killing, and to make sure no other children are harmed, in the future. That is our biggest goal.
You said yourself you'd been through a hard time, you'd gone down the wrong path, but you've turned your life around, Stacey. I don't want to concentrate on the negatives. Let's concentrate on the positives. What have you managed to do now? How are you coping now? Are you still having to cope day by day, or are you managing? You're pulling yourself back around.
I've always been okay. I'm very strong. I've managed to turn my full life around. I went down a road of blocking it all out, me taking drugs. I managed to get a hold of that, and I managed to turn my full life around, and I managed to help other people in similar situations. I'm now a qualified boxing tutor, and I'm going to help as many people as I possibly can.
Tell us a little bit about the boxing. What does that involve? What are you doing with the boxing?
I need to word it rightly. People who are coming to the place I work, which is Recovery Connections, they're helped in as many ways as you can possibly help people in these situations, and it is lived experience, and I'm one of the people who know. And see, my mind's just going blank, Steve. I'm really sorry.
That's fine. No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. So for us, all we need to do is we'll get the links off you and we can stick them below so people can find out a little bit more. But why boxing? Is it something you enjoy doing? Is it the fitness? Because healthy body, healthy mind, Stacey?
Boxing saved my life. I started boxing over 20 years ago, just myself, and I boxed and kickboxed. Well, actually, I'm a kickboxer, but I do boxing now, and that saved my life, I believe.
Fantastic. Have you got any boxing heroes?
All of them, really.
Yeah.
I'm good to get in that boxing ring.
Any thoughts about taking it up professionally? Never too late.
That was never my goal. It's never too late. No, who knows what the future holds?
Yeah.
But no, I just want to help people, because I know that it helped me and it saved my life. At some point. So I know that it can help others, and there's many other good factors, that comes with boxing. Many other, and it help people from all aspects of life.
How's your mum coping now, Stacey?
She's in shock. Bless her.
I think for your mum, it's a bit like pushing an immovable force, and then after 30 years, you don't have to push anymore. But she's, you know, with trying to find out the justice, as you say, she more or less worked the whole case out and could have done the job of the police a lot quicker, I think, if she'd had the power to do that. But I think ultimately she now has another push, which is for the inquiry. There needs to be an inquiry into this. Yeah,
she will not stop until every stone is unturned and they're all brought to justice. And honestly, I really believe my mum's saved a lot of children, you know, from being harmed, you know, by keep highlighting these people, you know, so they brought out of the woodwork. Mm-hmm. She won't stop. Like, the love she had for Nikki is the love that she's got for me, and honestly, my mum loves me.
Yeah, and that's what a mother should do. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, just give a message, I guess, to the people watching. You know, the people who supported you, who supported your mum, who supported your family in general. What would you like to say to those people just before we finish?
I would just like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's kept us taking over, you know, with support and knowing that we're not alone. I really thank you.
I'd like to dedicate this show to the memory of Nikki Allan. Justice has been done to a degree, but there is still a fight to go on. Any links that I can put in the chat below, the description below, will be there. Certainly stuff about the boxing, which is very close to Stacey's heart, as everybody has just heard on the chat. But thank you for coming on, Stacey. Thank you for sharing your story. Sending lots of love and respect to you and your family, and anything I can do to help push any campaign that you are pushing forward with regards to this, just give us a shout and I'll do that. Thanks very much for your time, Stacey.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.